Hi everyone, today is August 25th, 2018, and this is the Duel Assessment, your podcast for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. My name is Green Ranger.
And I'm Deck Tech.
And we've hit an exciting week in Duel Links. There is a new RPG event, a whole new dice game for us, and most of all, there is a new box coming up tomorrow, I believe. Tomorrow this new box is releasing. The last box before a bunch of new changes are coming to the game, and the Kaiba Cup's coming up. New changes, including 5Ds, so a lot is coming up our way, but we have this whole new box, a lot of new cards to talk about. So, Deck Tech, where are you this week?
So, I've been playing my trusty Gem Knights because they're more fun than anything else, and so I didn't follow our own advice of trying to kind of practice with Amazonas after the skill nerfs, which just went live. But I also figured it doesn't really matter very much at this point because I do think the box is going to shake things up. And so I've been kind of just playing around for fun. I got to Legend, which is pretty decent. I think that might be around where the deck caps out. It doesn't feel like it's the strongest deck in the format. Very kind of boom or bust. And so, I think that's about where it'll be for now, but I do think that I can do all right once we get some new stuff. I'm looking forward to the new box and to trying out how Amazonas look after the changes. I think it's going to be in a good spot, and so that's kind of where I am. Doing the events and stuff, of course.
You know what you're going to bring to the Kaiba Cup, like this Gem Knights or Amazon?
I don't think it'll be Gem Knights, at least not at the later stages of the Kaiba Cup, where it seems like it would be more competitive, of course. I might bring it to the early stages just because that's kind of fun, and those early stages tend to not be as rough. But it would probably be either Amazonas or we're going to talk about the new box. I'm thinking Sea Stealth might get a boost, so I'll take a look to see if I'm right about that and if that's a good place to try as well. How about you?
Yeah, same as you in Ranked. I hit the Legend ranks earlier in the week. Well, not earlier in the week, like a couple of days ago. And I did it with Vampires with a Life Point Boost Alpha version. And as we will talk about soon, and going over some of the esports deck lists, Vampires are weird in that they have core cards, but they don't have a core deck size. They don't have popular tech choices, just a bunch of tech choices, and first and most importantly, they don't have a skill. So we're seeing Vampires with all different skills, and I'm using Life Point Boost Alpha, which makes me think I should change to something better if I want to win some games in Legend or in the Kaiba Cup. So there's a lot of experimentation left in me deciding what Vampire deck I'm bringing moving forward.
But you are thinking it's going to be one of the Vampire decks.
Yeah, I think so. I was playing Fur Hires before, and I'm not going to do it anymore. And I don't think I'm going to buy too much of the box to make an archetype, but this is probably the best deck I have, and that's saying a lot. Or I could play yugiohs. I feel like yugiohs still have some potential, so maybe I'll switch around. In Kaiba Cups, I tend to get frustrated, and I switch decks often. So.
Yeah. Cool.
So, we're going to talk about esports before we go over a lot of cards. As mentioned, there are many different Vampire decks that triumphed, and we're going to talk about some of them. So the Duel Links Meta Weekly 34 happened on the 22nd of August. 73 players. Amazonas and Fur Hire still came up as the top decks. But in the top 16, it was Amazonas and Vampires who came up most common top 16 decks.
Interesting. Switching it up.
Yep. First place, Blarahan, Cyberstyle, Vampires, and Endless Trap Hell, Amazonas. The Cyberstyle is a skill that you kind of thought would come with Vampires because they do a lot of tribute summoning and it makes sense for them because they automatically lose life points. This one has a Monarch in it, so it's Zaborg, the Thunder Monarch. The Monarch is not with any of the other, Monarchy ramp cards that you would expect. So it's just thrown into a Vampire deck. That's what's going on here. And the Amazoness Endless Trap Hell version has 2 Lava Golems. No baby tigers now, so that's what this deck looks like.
That's what I'm talking about, baby. Yeah, the Monarch's really cool. I've always liked the Monarch cards. I'm glad that it's seen someone's decided to pick it up and play with it. That's fun. And of course, as you guys know, I love the Lava Golem. Most people aren't with me on that one, but I do think it's really solid in the deck, and I'm glad that Blau Reichen agreed and did well with it.
Yeah, I'm not on the board with the Lava Golems, I'm sorry.
How dare you?
It happened to me on Ranked. I saw the circles go, and it's like, oh man, not again.
Yeah. I mean, it just... I understand. It's an investment, and sometimes by the time you would be able to play it, you're dead anyway, because if your opponent has put out more than 2 monsters, it usually means that they put out 3, which usually means they attacked your face for a bunch.
Yeah.
But it just synergizes so well with the rest of the deck that I'm still cool with it.
I was actually playing a really good game. That game was a really good game. Because I was trying to mill his Lava Golem with the Vampire, and I kept declaring Monster, but he kept throwing out some other stuff, and then that helped him draw his Lava Golem.
You fool!
Yeah,
that's pretty funny.
Second place, Shiny Sophion, Bandit, Vampires, Endless Trap Hell, Amazoness. Bandit, Vampires. This deck has a Mirror Wall and 2 Cosmic Cyclones, and even the Grimson. I started playing with Grimson, and they all make you lose life points. All these cards do. And that basically helps the Bandit. So you could steal... I did play this deck on ladder. I lost most of my games, but I won one. It was pretty cool, because I used Bandit, and I won the game because of that. And this Amazoness list has Amazoness Scouts. It's a 20-card version. I have seen some with Widespread Ruin, and this one does run Widespread Ruin.
Yep. Yeah, it seems... the Bandit seems like it works pretty well. Like, it synergizes with the skill anyway. So... Or synergizes with the cards, I mean. So that seems reasonable to me.
Yeah.
I like that. Like you said, it's kind of still all undecided, I guess. And that seems like a good way to maybe pursue it. The Endless Trap Hell seems solid. I've never loved the Scouts, but I know obviously some other people do. So that's cool too.
They're on the Onslaught artwork. Same people.
Yes, they are. So I don't know if that matters, but they get bonus points for that.
Showing up on a card.
Yeah.
Futuristic third place, Restart Amazoness Endless Trap Hell Gearjas. So, this spellbook list has a Chow Len the Prophet. Sometimes you do see a utility monster slot, like a magical something, but this one has Chow Len, which isn't bad in this meta. I think with all the Amazoness, you know it's going to be a trap. So you're just going to declare a trap, and then they can't activate it, so that's a pretty good choice. And then this Endless Trap Hell version of Gearjas is very interesting. First time I think they're not running balance. There's no magic card, so there's no ties. That's a card you always see with them. Now it's a new deck.
Yeah, so a lot of this is interesting. The Chow Len is interesting because we kind of normally consider it just a budget replacement for like Sergeant Electro or whatever, but it does, of course, have a slightly better, well, at least attack. I don't remember Sergeant Electro's defense. I think it's stronger than that. And it's a spellcaster, which is very important, of course, to the deck. Lets you kind of activate your spells. So that's a good pick out of like cards that people weren't used to seeing. So good call there. And then the Endless Trap Hell Gearjas, that's just out of nowhere, as far as I can tell. Obviously, you were running a couple traps before, mostly the Pulse Mines, but then the rest of this is just kind of pulled out of nowhere. So I don't know. You played Gearjas, whereas I didn't. Is it worth it to cut the Brethren? I kind of thought that's what the whole deck was about.
Yeah, I mean, this is... They always ran balance, so you had to have, a bunch of magic cards. They figured you can't run econ with pulse mines. So it's like you were trying to look for filler magic cards, I think, other than the ties, and this kind of avoids it completely. And it's a much longer game because Gearges are good. Every turn they flip, so they're gonna outlast you. I think that's what the point of this deck is.
Yeah, I guess you're right. It does. It looks very much like a control deck. It's bringing back the Windstorm and the Curse of Anubis, which are cards we don't see nearly as much anymore. So, a very interesting deck.
Third place, Maria Amni, Sealed Tombs, Spellbooks, and Endless Trap Hell Amazonis. The Sealed Tombs Spellbooks has another different monster in the Tricky. It's a card you kind of saw at first, and then it went away, so now it's back, I guess. And this Amazonis deck runs an interesting card we haven't seen in a very long time, the Dust Tornado.
Yep. Yeah, Endless Trap Hell lets you kind of dig deeper into those cards that you might not normally use. Dust Tornado, like you said, is one I haven't seen in a long time. But I actually kind of like it. It's very tricky. What it lets you do is it lets you build. So you can have your Dust Tornado set, of course, and then you play your Princess, and your back row can be fully set, and then you can still get your Onslaught down, or something. I assume it works like you still have to wait a turn, so you don't get to use it right away. Have you used this card? Do you know?
Well, it's just like a normal trap card. Oh, the set card. Yeah, you can't use it again.
Yeah.
You have to wait the next turn.
Okay. So a little bit less tricky, but still, I guess it's mostly just in there so that you can activate Endless Trap Hell. But I always like seeing new and different things.
And the next tournament we're going to go over is the 1% Cutie Pie Open. This appears to be a collaborative effort between two of the Clan Wars clans. So that's what this is. This happened last Saturday. 174 players participated. Amazonis came out at top. This one, I think there were more fur hires, but I think the nerfs were put in place. I think people were just playing around with the fur hire decks here. And first place, Zade King brought an interesting one. The Mythic Depths Fur Hires and Parasite Amazonis. So this one has 3 Sea Stealth attack, which only synergizes with the Wiz, because Wiz is a water attribute. And it's pretty genius. I mean, they both kind of negate stuff. I guess the Wiz can protect the Sea Stealth from being destroyed, and then they kind of just protect each other. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It makes the Wiz lockdown even stronger. I'm not sure if it's worth the cost of, obviously you have to run the 3 Sea Stealths, and also you have to switch your skill to Mythic Depths. But as I've been saying, it's always really fun to see people experimenting with new things, trying something out, obviously doing well with it. So this is a really cool, interesting take on how the archetype might look after these nerfs go live.
Yep. Ruler, Balanced Vampires. It's a 24-card deck, and as we said before, vampires don't have a skill. This one is balance, so that's why they're forced to run 6 magic cards and 6 traps, and then a switcheroo spellbooks deck.
Yeah, and the switcheroo spellbooks is very standard, so we don't have to talk too much about that. The balance is interesting take on it, I guess. You've played, again, more vampires than I have. Is there anything that really stands out here?
Nothing. They just have econ. They typically don't. Well, some have econ. Some vampire decks have econ, some don't. There's the 3 Paleozoic Canadia, so it's just putting in good cards to fill up the slots. I think that's what's going on here.
Yeah, and then because he's made it exactly 24 cards, that means you get 2 well, if you have a 4-card starting hand, then you get 2 monsters, 1 magic, 1 trap. So, okay, cool. I like it.
Yeah, it puts less reliance on getting the dog. Because typically you want to throw the dog away, so you get one of the missing spells or traps But now that you're guaranteed one of them, it's less reliance on that. So I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. The reason why it looks so interesting to me is that normally if you're doing a balance, you're trying really hard to hit one specific thing, and the easiest way to hit one specific thing is if it's in one of your groups of 6 and you have 3 of it.
Right.
But nothing. The only thing that there's 3 of in the groups of 6 is the Paleozoic Canadia, which is obviously not what you're doing it for. That's just kind of a solid card. So it's a very interesting list. I wonder if it'll kind of take.
Yeah. I think a problem with it is that it doesn't have enough vampires. Sometimes you just put in a filler vampire monster just to be a vampire, so you could throw it away. And this one doesn't have those cards. You might just clunk up with magic and spell cards. No, but then some of them are vampire cards too.
Yeah, that's what I was.
There's at least 5 of them here. Yeah.
Noticing.
I guess the good cards can get in the way. The good cards.
Yeah, but then I guess the plan is that if since they're good cards, they'll make up for that weight. I don't know. It's interesting. It's also interesting that vampires run simultaneous loss.
Yeah, it's great. It's their removal card.
Gotcha.
Because then you have the field, and then you could just destroy something. It's kind of like Grace. Grace does the same thing, and then they like having their own cards in the graveyard anyway, so it helps.
Yeah, since I hadn't played the deck, I forgot about the value of milling their top card with the field, so that makes sense.
Yep. Skill Shot, 3rd place, Switcheroo, Masked Heroes. There's not much to say about this deck. And then Parasite Amazonas, Super Rush Headlong.
Yep, that's about it. Like you said, these are both fairly standard lists. The Switcheroo Masked Heroes is like very standard. It's pretty much exactly what you'd expect. And the Parasite Infestation, the one weird thing, or not weird, but less common thing, is the Super Rush Headlong. I guess the second thing might be the Amazonas Sage. And it's running 2 Paladin, so, like, not trying to naysay this clever deck building, but it's less different than some of the other stuff we've seen.
It's more aggro, right? I'd say, because it's not an endless trap hell, too.
Yeah, the parasites are dealing extra damage. I don't know. It's hard to think of Amazonas Sage as like a card for an aggro deck, because it's got such a small body and it's pretty slow. It's the reasons why you don't see it these days anymore. But this version doesn't run any of the other back row controls, so it makes sense.
And Yugen, Height, with 3rd place Sealed Tombs, Vampires, and Parasite Amazonas. This Sealed Tombs Vampire has 2 Hey Trunades, which is something you haven't seen in that deck before.
Yeah, and Sealed Tombs itself is for the mirror, I guess. It's kind of an interesting... Oh, wait, no. Sealed Tombs. Yeah, okay. Anyway.
It's like against any deck, I guess.
Yeah. And then the Parasite Infestation, it looks fairly similar to the last one. It's got, instead of Super Rush... Well, no, it has Super Rush as well. It has the Tiger, which is a little aggro-er. Doesn't run the Treacherous Trap Hole, which I think is interesting because that's a very good card. But it does run 2 Wall of D, so I guess it's kind of going for a different feel. And it has the Whistle, so maybe more aggro than the other one. It's kind of weird.
Both of these archetypes are very unsettled. That's all you can say.
Yeah, and that's always been something about Amazonas, is that there's kind of the core of, I don't know, about 10 cards, and then depending on which route you take it, you kind of, with your skill, you kind of put yourself in a pool where you have to pick from, you maybe narrow down another 5 cards based on which skill you want to use, and then after that there's kind of 5 slots to play with in pretty much every version of it. So that's why it's kept my attention so long. I think it's just a really solid deck, so it wins a lot, which is always nice, and then there's just a lot of room to play, which satisfies that side of the deck tech nature.
So clever deck building equals longevity.
That's right.
Sort of. Alright. we're gonna get down to the bottom of this. It's the new box, Gaia Genesis. It's coming out tomorrow, probably at night for us in America, and in the morning in Japan. Um, and an important thing to talk about before we go over the cards is the lasting value of this box. Notably, they officially announced that 5Ds is coming. Well, they said massive changes, so we assume that's when the motorcycles are going to be finished.
In the shop.
Yes. Out of the shop, polished, ready to go. And it's going to be exactly, I'm not saying exactly, but roughly a month from this recording, I'd say. Like late September.
Mm-hmm.
And would this box be creeped? Because all those characters, you're getting like 6 characters. 6 or 7 or 8, I forget. You're getting those characters, and they all come with their own cards, which are synchros. Would those just creep out this box? So there's the question of whether to buy this box, and whether cards in this box can stand the test of time in decks, in Duel Links.
Yeah, that's kind of something that people have to wrestle with before just looking at them all generally, before buying stuff, and just when assessing all of these cards. It's always really hard to predict where this game's going to go in the future, even when we have leaks and stuff, because cards come so frequently. The meta can shift on just like a dime. So it's hard to tell how good your investments are going to be in the future, which of course sometimes leads to disappointment. But sometimes it's worth it just to play with the strong archetype for a couple months or, whatever. So I think I'm not too worried about how good these cards are going to be in a month, but we'll see in a month's time if I'm upset that I've spent all my gems. So
that's happened enough times already.
Yeah,
you're okay with it.
That's true. I'm used to it by now.
You're inured to disappointment.
Yes.
All right. Let's go over the cards. We're going to talk about every ultra rare and super rare, and then we're going to talk about the archetypes broadly. Well, not broadly, but specific cards as well. Ultra rare, Elemental Hero Gaia Fusion, 6-star 22-26. Fuse 1 Elemental Hero with any Earth monster. When it's fused, target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, and until the end phase, you get Ryoku, so you get half of its attack added to this guy. Well, that card loses half its attack, and then this card gains it. So it's like a Ryoku on a 2200. These cards are pretty bad in general. This one's kind of okay, I'd say, but, that's where the Elemental Heroes are at. Yeah,
I'm with you. The Elemental Heroes got a little bit of love in this box, generally speaking, and it doesn't seem like it's enough to really change their status from non-meta to anything, even in the low tiers of the meta. So I'm not terribly excited about this card.
I did get beat by one unranked with the Where the Heroes Dwell skill.
I mean, it's possible. It is a deck, but like anything can happen. But it's just not nearly as good as any of the other main things.
The most hotly anticipated archetype in this box, the Mermails, have an ace monster here. Mermail Abyss Megalo, 7-star 24-19. You can discard 2 other water monsters to the graveyard, and you can special summon this from your hand. When you do, add 1 Abyss spell trap from your deck to your hand. You contribute 1 other face-up attack position water monster, and this card can make a second attack each battle phase this turn. There's only 1 battle phase, but basically it's a 1-turn kill card. The card you get, the Spell Trap Abyss card, is a protection card. It's an equip spell. So you get that card, but then you have to equip it. And this card definitely has a lot of OTK potential, but equips are kind of slow, and then they could activate a trap on this guy when he's summoned, which could just ruin everything. That's the problem with this card.
Yeah, I don't love the equip cards. They don't really excite me, so this card itself seems kind of meh as a boss monster. which got a few people upset. Actually, they were talking about how they were a little disappointed with how the archetype came out in Duel Links. Um, People were expecting it to be like the new king of the meta. I remember people were posting about that, and then now they're not so sure. But there's obviously still some potential. Anytime you could do an OTK, discarding 2 cards is not much of a cost in terms of it's easy to fill that cost. So you can just kind of ring this out whenever you have a good chance to do so. So there's a little bit of potential here, just not quite as much as people were expecting.
UA midfielder. This is kind of the important card for the UA archetype. It's a 4-star warrior with 1200 attack, 1000 defense. You can special summon this card from your hand by returning 1 UA monster you control to the hand except for UA midfielder. You can only special summon UA midfielder once per turn this way. During either player's turn, you can target one other UA monster you control, return that face-up monster to the hand, and special summon 1 UA monster from your hand with a different name. You can only use this effect once per turn. So this UA archetype, they just try to... It's kind of like Gladiator Beast, except it's happening in your hand. So they try to swap a smaller guy, which is this guy, into a bigger guy. So you definitely, if you want to play the UA archetype well, you want a lot of these guys, I think.
Yeah. So it actually reminds me a little bit of the Insectors as well, even though they haven't seen any play and the Glad Beasts have. So maybe the Glad Beasts are something that people will understand better. But basically, I'm almost certain you run 3 of these because most of the other UA cards are big, multiple tributes if you wanted to actually play them, or at least 1 tribute. So basically, you need to get the chain started, and this seems like the easy way to get the chain started. Some of them have like entered play effects, if I recall correctly. So you might do like multiple moves in 1 turn, but you need to start somewhere. And I think this is almost always going to be your starting point. So it would make sense to run a lot of this guy.
And I'll talk about another card later, but the 1200 attack doesn't really matter.
Right, yeah.
And we'll explain later, yeah. Sangen, we all know what Sangen does, so I'm not going to go over Sangen. He's a good searcher, but he's not OP like he would have been back in the day.
Yeah, he's worse than he is in TCG.
All I could say.
Yeah.
Okay, this card, it might be OP. Swap Frog. Level 2 Aqua with 1000 attack and 500 defense. You can special summon this card from your hand by discarding 1 other water monster. When this card is summoned, you can send 1 level 2 or lower Aqua water monster from your deck or face up from the field to the graveyard. Once per turn, you can return 1 monster you control to the hand. You can normal summon 1 frog during your main phase this turn, except Swap Frog, in addition to your normal summon and set. There's a lot going on here, but what we can tell is that it ramps, it thins your deck, it has discard synergy, and it does a ton for water decks of all sorts.
Yes, yeah, the ramp, I just realized when you were reading it that one of the effects that I thought it could be used for doesn't work anymore.
Fish doesn't work,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, the fish doesn't work because it's not an aqua type. But it still does give you that free ramp summon, which might be good for Sea Stealth. I was thinking before it was going to be broken for Sea Stealth, but now I think it might still have a place because you can discard a card that you don't care about or that you even actively want in the graveyard. So I'm thinking either the Citadel Whale itself or I forget what it's called. The
Fishborg.
Yeah, Fishborg, thank you. And so... You always take such good care of me with that. So, and then if you pitch the Fishborg, then that itself can be your second one because you can then mill your top card, bring the Fishborg back, and then get the Citadel Whale. So, it's a 1-card ramp to get you to Citadel Whale. And since it's a special summon, even if you don't get that little combo going, you can still do things like do your normal summon, then do your special summon, get your Citadel Whale out. Hell, it's even a level 2, so you can even do Hammer Shark stuff still, and there's a little bit more Hammer Shark synergy within the set as well. So this is one of the cards that I was talking about when I said that I do expect Sea Stealth to get a bit of a boost in this set, and I think it might make a comeback because of it.
Yeah, that first ability is good for all the things you said. The second ability that requires the aqua water could be synchro, because you get this guy on, you get another level 2, you get a level 4 synchro from your extra deck immediately. So there's a ton going on here, and when you build with this card, you have to know the difference between aqua, sea serpent, and fish. So it forces you to go through those cards as well, I guess.
Yeah, they always trick me because there's so many water.
They're all aqua. They're all aqua, anyways.
Yeah, exactly. They're all in the water. Why aren't they the same thing? So I'm looking at the targets now. Of the ones that are currently in the game, the only one that saw some play was Starboy, which I don't think is good enough anymore to see any play. So that's not the main reason why you'd run it. There's Slushy, which is kind of a combo type thing for the same idea if you put them all in your graveyard. But I don't think that's what you're doing at this point, at least.
Yeah, there'll be more in the future.
Yeah.
Gates of the Dark World, a field spell. All fiends gain 300 attack and defense. Once per turn, you can banish a fiend from your graveyard and discard one fiend monster, then draw one card. So, this card has a lot of potential for any fiend deck. It helps cycle through their cards. It might help the lesser fiends like Dark World, Fabled, and Steelswarm as well.
Good point. Yeah, it's kind of an engine type card, which means that even if it doesn't see immediate play, it's something that might at some point become abusable. They limit it to once per turn, and it is, we were talking about this before, a field, so it's pretty much hard limited to one per turn. You can't just have multiple out and do a whole chain. But actually, I guess you can, but only on one turn, right? If you play a new one. But anyway,
I guess, yeah.
The idea being, like, it's not going to likely just break the game, but the upside is that you get this effect every turn. Over a few turns, you can really get like an engine going, and in the interim, you have 300 attack, 300 defense boost. So at least it's not like useless. You're still getting some value, even kind of as you're ramping up your engine. So it's a card to keep an eye on. Maybe not one of like chase cards now, but we'll see if maybe something comes. I guess if you're getting this card, you're likely to get a couple Sandgans as well, so there's maybe a little bit, maybe a few more tools for regular fiends, and I don't know, something might come.
Dark Necrofear's coming back.
Yeah, there you go.
Gemini Spark Quick Play spell, tribute one face-up level 4 Gemini, then target one card on the field. Destroy it, and if you do, draw a card. I realized that... Oh, no, wait, this is tribute. I guess it could be your opponent's Gemini monster. It doesn't say, but...
I think...
There's insane... Yeah, go ahead.
I think tribute means your monster, but I'm not 100% certain.
What does Lava Golem say?
That's a good point. Let's see.
That's the card I'm thinking about, yeah.
Alright, Lava... Yeah, it specifically says their monster.
Okay.
So, I don't know.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
We're not expecting a Gemini meta. This card has insane synergy with Supervise for sure, because you just destroy your thing, and then you destroy their thing, and your guy comes back. And there's some other Gemini monsters that are in this set. Dark Valkyria, there is Heavy Knight, obviously, and Evocateur something. And then the other guy's a Gemini too. The Ancient Gear Knight is Gemini.
Yeah, and most people don't know this because they don't play the deck nearly as much as I do, but the Gem Knights also have a decent amount of Gemini synergy sneakily.
Oh yeah, Iolite, right?
There's a bunch of them actually. There's the water one. I don't actually know their names because
that's Iolite's the water one.
Okay, yeah. So there's that guy. There's a couple others as well. The water one's the main one that I use now, but I could see maybe switching over to Supervise and Gemini Spark to get like an engine going. I don't think it works quite as well in that deck. I think I'd rather have the traps that I have now, and then you need a certain amount of. Basically, when you're building that deck, you have to play a 30-card deck, and you have to have a certain number of Gem Knights, and you're running the Grasslook Screener, so there's not that many slots to play with, and I don't think this makes the cut, but it might, and if I open a few of these, then I'll try it out.
Yep. Alright, we're going to move on to two very important cards. The first of which is Galaxy Cyclone, normal spell. Target one set spell trap on the field and destroy it. During your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, target one face-up spell trap on the field and destroy it. You can use this effect once per turn. So, basically what this is two spell trap removals in one card. It is a bit situational in that you force a set and then you do... It has to be a face-up second time. So there is that limitation, but you bring up an interesting point about how the mechanic, like what the intention of this card is.
Yeah, so we were talking about this before we started recording, and a lot of people are seeing this as a good counter for Amazonas. So we were talking about why that might or might not be the case, and I was thinking that in terms of actually getting rid of the Amazonas Onslaught, which is what you want, like that's the whole point, the Cosmic Cyclone's better because it removes it. There's not any... I don't think there's any way, but there's certainly not any good way to get it back once they've done that. And so in terms of just getting rid of the Onslaught, that's the better play. But what this does is it changes how you are forced to play as the Amazonas player. First of all, if this card gets popular, then we're kind of forced into playing the Endless Trap Hell version of the deck, which means we don't get to abuse skills that we might otherwise think are better, like Parasite Infestation, Life Cost Zero, any of that other stuff that people are experimenting with, because you need to be able to get them back from the graveyard. The other thing that it does, which isn't immediately apparent, is that it forces you to activate your Onslaughts early so that they are not a set spell or trap card on the field. Because the way that we're reading this, and the way that we're pretty much certain it works, is it doesn't matter if the card is initially set, that's only relevant for the targeting, not the resolution of the card. So if you have it set and they target it with the Cyclone and then you flip it up, it still dies. And that's, you get your Amazonas as a result of the Onslaught dying, so that's good. But what it does is it forces you, if you don't want your Onslaught to die that turn, is you have to flip it face up immediately during their draw step. And then that means that you don't have any surprise factor. It means they can't miss if they have like another Cyclone, in the graveyard or whatever. Or if they're running the Cosmic Cyclone and the Galaxy Cyclone, then they know exactly which one is the Onslaught. I like to play games with where I've put my Onslaught sometimes, and a lot of times people will miss it, and that won't happen anymore. So it reminds me excuse me, of when Anti-Magic Arrows first came out, and the Duel Links meta people thought that it was one of the better cards in the game. They ended up switching off of that, but because they thought it was powerful at the time, a lot of them were running it, and because a lot of them were running it, a lot of other people had to play poorly in anticipation that the anti-magic arrows might go off. And so you would have to do things like flip up your mirror wall before the battle phase started so that you couldn't get OTK'd that turn. But that meant that you would no longer get the free 2-for-1 with the mirror wall, or 1-for-1, where they would attack their monster in and then lose it because it gets smaller than the monster they're attacking into. And this kind of reminds me of the same type of thing where you're forced to play worse so that you're hedging against this card being played against you. So it has a lot of value, not just in the fact that it's a 2-for-1, which is always good, even if it's spread across 2 turns and even if it has those limitations, but also for the way that it forces you to play with the deck. You have to change the way that you play up, which makes you a little bit worse. It's like playing around secrets in Hearthstone, where you have to make a suboptimal play so that you don't get blown out. But then that means that every turn you're making suboptimal plays, or you've built your deck slightly suboptimally in terms of switching your skill up, and so that hurts you in the long run. So it's kind of a double whammy with this card.
So that means it's definitely going to see play.
Yeah, I mean, right now it looks like Amazonas will probably be the best deck after the nerfs go live, and so this seems like it'll definitely see play at least initially, and then we'll see where the meta settles if it's worth still playing after that.
And a flashier card than Galaxy Cyclone, with which is pretty obvious what it does. Drowning Mirror Force trap card. When opponent's monster declares a direct attack, shuffle all your opponent's attack position monsters into the deck. So there is obviously insane value here. You can basically remove 3 of their monsters in one turn and set yourself up to win. I don't think anyone is going to play around this card intentionally, but if it does see enough play, it's very possible that they do, which makes the play worse because they're not attacking with everyone.
Yeah, or like not direct attacking on certain turns where they know, like if I don't direct attack this turn, then maybe I can lock it down next turn or something like that. Or I'll get blown out, so I can't afford it to try to direct attack this turn until I have lethal or something like that. It's a very interesting card. Looks very powerful. One thing that I really like about it is that it's a really strong defensive trap that does not make stall decks better, right? Because it puts your monsters...
Makes them have more cards.
Yeah, it puts your monsters back into your deck so they can't mill you out as easily. So, I mean, I guess some types of stall, the stall burn, it does make them better, but it doesn't... Like, we had this problem. We had to limit Massive Morph because it was so annoying. Endless Trap Hell, stall, like, mill decks are just the worst thing to play against. So I really like that this is a powerful card, gives us tools to play with, gives us strong defensive tools to combat OTK-type metas, but it doesn't make those terrible, terrible decks stronger. So I like this card. It's definitely one of the chase cards of the set, you're right.
Yes. Let's move into the super rares. Dark Valkyria, who is Dunamis Dark Witch. 1800, 1050. It's a Gemini monster, fairy. When you Gemini summon it, it's once while this card is face up on the field, you can place 1 spell counter on it. This card gains 300 attack for each spell counter. You can remove 1 spell counter from this card, target 1 monster in the field, and destroy it. So it's only going to get 1 spell counter ever unless you intentionally put spell counters on her. And it's a very slow control card. That's all I could say about it. It's a very slow control card. And there is Gemini Spark now.
Yeah, there's a little bit of Gemini synergy. It's one of those, like, I mean, it's an okay card just on its own as well. Like Heavy Knight of Flame, where for a while these cards were just strong enough that you would play them even if the Gemini effect isn't necessarily relevant in all your matches. We have, of course, moved beyond the phase in the game where Heavy Knight of Flame is good enough just on its own. So there's a question as to whether this will be good enough on its own, but it seems like a really solid control card. We've got some decent other tools that can surround it to give you that extra turn so that you can get the counter going and just kind of control the field a little bit. I like it. I'm probably going to end up picking up a couple while I'm buying through this box, so, I might try it out in some sort of... This is the type of control cards that I prefer, by the way, where it's kind of like a tempo control thing where I'm controlling you for like just enough so that I can then swing back and win. Cards like this, cards like Sergeant Electro, cards of like, Heavy Knight of Flame. Those are things that I'm interested in seeing, so I might give it a shot. It does seem, like you said, pretty slow, though, in a meta where people are able to special summon, a full board of guys on the first turn or something. So we'll see if it can compete.
Kawaki Meru Sandman, 4-star rock, 1900, 1200. During each of your end phases, destroy this unless you send 1 Iron Core of Kawaki Meru from your hand to the graveyard or reveal 1 rock monster in your hand. During either player's turn, when your opponent activates a trap, you contribute this card, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it.
So,
tell us about this card.
So I looked at this archetype a little bit more. We kind of split up the set a little bit, and the archetype as a whole doesn't really impress me very much. But there are certain cards that can see play because of that secondary way to work. So the way that it works is these Kawaki Meru cards, they all have during your end phase, you have to either discard this core or I guess it's send, not discard. Sometimes that's relevant. To your graveyard, or you can reveal one card. It's almost all of them have that. Some of them are only you can use the core or stuff like that. And so there's this cost, but then the monster itself is like slightly better than average, or if the cost is really high, then it's much better than average, I guess. And this guy seems slightly better than average. Just like on his own, and there's a decent number of rocks, so that maybe you can play something with like magnets or gem knights or whatever. But all of those decks are very what's it called?
Tuned.
It's kind of the gem knights less so. The magnets are pretty tuned, but they all require like internal synergies. So the magnets want you to run more magnets. The gem knights want you to run more gem knights, and so this seems like in the decks where it would be easy to use it, you don't want to use it because you'd rather fill your deck with the things that the deck is made of. So I don't think this guy will see a ton of play.
Giant Soldier of Stone doesn't mind though.
Yeah, okay, true.
I'm saying they could just go destroy the Moon Unga Bunga deck.
Yeah.
Kawaki Meru Knight. It's a 4-star Beast Warrior with 2,000, 1,500. Same ability, where you have to send an Iron Core from the hand or reveal one Beast Warrior. Once per turn, you can reveal Iron Core from your hand to special summon one level 4 or lower Kawaki Meru, except for Knight. So this one seems to have a much better secondary ability, where you could just start ramping stuff onto the board. Special summoning stuff on the board.
Yeah, so this one seems like if this archetype is any good at all, this will be the reason why. This is kind of like the workhorse of the archetype, just like the midfielder is for the UA. I think
he is a horse.
Yeah. Hey, there you go. And in my notes of it, I said if this archetype has any legs, which is funny because he has 4 legs. So anyway, I think that if this archetype goes anywhere, it's because of this thing, and you want 3 of this in your deck. He seems kind of like the core of the deck, and the only real reason why you'd run it, because he ups your tempo, strong body on his own, kind of really gets the engine going.
Yeah, and just thinking of types in general, Beast Warriors are kind of like aggro cards, I think. Like, that's how you think of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of have, like, Fire Formation, Gyaku, things that could just blow you away kind of deal.
Yeah. Yeah, so for that secondary ability, you have to run the core, which is meh. But, a 2,000 attacker Beast Warrior, that's something you can just run in your Fields of Warrior deck, right?
Yeah.
So this might see some play just in Unga Bunga decks just as a solid card. But for it to have its full effect, you need to run the core, which is useless if you don't have the cards that require it. So we'll see if it ends up being just plugged in or if it ends up being like a full archetype.
Mermail Abyss Spike, 4-star fish, 1,600, 800. When this card is normal summoned or special summoned, discard 1 water monster to the graveyard, add 1 level 3 water monster from your deck to your hand. You can use this effect once per turn. So Mermails basically start by getting a level 4. They get a 3, which they special summon, and then they get another guy. So this starts it off. Obviously, you want 3 of these for sure. And then you mentioned it has other synergies outside of Mermails for water decks.
Yeah, there's a couple. Nothing crazy, but maybe since people are disappointed with the Mermails on their own, you can look at these other options. One is King of the Swamp for fusions, and it's just an extra tutor for that, which is nice because you can tutor your tutor. Lets you get a lot of toolbox stuff from the deck. Yomi Ship is a card that hasn't seen play in a while because it's not quite to the same power level anymore, but if you can tutor it out of your deck, it might be worth it. Oystermeister for Golden Flying Fish comeback. Lost Blue Breaker, Hammer Shark, and Deep Diver is a slow but powerful tutor effect, so again, just kind of general use. There's a few things that you might want out of this.
Atlantean Marksman. 3-star Serpent, Sea Serpent, 1400 0. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can special summon one level 4 or lower Atlantean Sea Serpent from your deck, except for Marksman. When this card is sent to the graveyard, you can activate a Water Monster's effect. Target one set card your opponent controls and destroy it. So, it seems like it's a card for Golden Flying Fish, because that kind of sends a Water Monster away, and then you could just destroy 2 cards with the Golden Flying Fish ability.
Yeah, there's a lot of like internal synergy here. It obviously works with the Mermail we just talked about. It works with Hammer Shark because it's a level 3, and also that secondary ability lets you like activate the Hammer Shark again, so you can just get like a huge chain of things going. It seems like that might be one of the sleeper archetypes to come out of. It's not even the last card that helps the archetype, so it might very well make a comeback after this set.
And if you forget, there's a card called Atlantean Attack Squad, who is basically a 3-star 2300. So he could come out of the deck in the first ability.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of a lesser way to use it, but it's another way to consider it.
Yeah, I think the idea there is that you somehow get an attack in with it because it's a direct attack, or, I don't know, your opponent was sleeping or something. But once you do, the Atlantean Attack Squad like helps protect it, because it is 1400 that gains an 800 attack while you control another one, so then people have to deal with this. So, I don't know, it's kind of very snowball-y.
Right. Atlantean Heavy Infantry. This is a 2-star 1600. During your main phase, you can normal summon one level 4 or lower Sea Serpent in addition to a normal summoner set. When this card is sent to the graveyard, you can activate a Water Monster's effect. Target one face-up card your opponent controls and destroy it.
Yeah, so this one seems really strong to me. It gives you that same kind of double activation. It lets you do great stuff with Sea Stealth Attack, because it just gives you a free automatic activation. You have not a ton, but a couple options there. You've got Gishki Chain as a Sea Serpent. You've got the Atlantean Attack Squad, I guess, if you want to go. That's where they wanted you to take it, but that's one way you could take it. Spined Gilman, I guess, and Lost Blue Breaker. So obviously for Sea Stealth Attack, you would only use the Gishki Chain, but if you wanted to go with kind of this tempo thing that they're doing, then you would go with the Attack Squad and the Spined Gilman, maybe the Lost Blue Breaker. But anyway, it seems like a solid card. Lots of internal synergies that I like there.
Snowman Eater, 3-star Aqua 1900. When this card's flipped face up, target one face-up monster on the field and destroy it. It's a Man-Eater bug with defense, but it only does face-ups. It seems like a filler.
Yeah, this isn't a card that I'm excited about. I mean, we say filler, but also like new players, if this is the first set they're buying, then it's a good thing for them to have. It'll do well at gold ranks and stuff. Might as well put something like that in there. But definitely not something that us more established players will be particularly interested in. It is a level 3 water aqua, so it has a little bit more viability, I guess, some of these synergy cards. Maybe level 3 water from your deck to your hand. So yeah, I guess that's kind of where they're going with it.
For some reason, if I'm a new player, I would be so disappointed to get get a card 0 attack, as your SR. That would disappoint me. I don't know if that's a thing.
That's a good point. New players are often, but not always, bad players. So they might not understand the value of something like that. Or if they're too good, they would know that it's not a good card and be disappointed. But if they're that good, I would think that they're informed enough to know exactly which boxes they want to buy and exactly what they're getting out of it. So yeah, I think there's kind of a sweet spot of new player who, someone like me, if I were coming into the game now, I would be like, okay, yeah, I could see where this card is. I remember Man-Eater Bug from when I used to play. I understand how the game works. I know that it's not the strongest card, but it's something that's good enough for my deck right now to play at semi-decent level. Um, I think you want cards that appeal to every type of player, at least a couple cards that appeal to every type of player, so that every type of player has a reason to buy the set. So it kind of makes sense.
Brother of the Firefist Gorilla. This is a card from the reprint box, I believe. It's the Firefist archetype, so you could set the Fire Formation cards directly from your deck, which is like Yaku, and then you could activate that turn. Then you could basically destroy spells and traps by destroying the card you just played.
Yes, yeah, I forgot that we might have seen this guy already. We've seen so many of these Fire Fists. That's my main concern about this card is like, what does this do?
Which one was it?
Well, yeah, there's that. But also, in terms of adding to the value of the deck, it's like, how much does this add to the deck as compared to the other cards that are already in the archetype? And is it worth it even to, like, to add this to your deck, to buy packs for it? Seems a little out of place, both in terms of, like, the theme of this set's all water and this guy's fire. But also just, I don't know, this is a very unexciting card to me. Even though it's a decent card, every card in this archetype is already a decent card. And the archetype sees no play. The archetype wants like an over-the-top card, some sort of boss monster or something to make it worth playing these guys. Not more of these like middle-tier guys that are decent and could help you ramp there or whatever, but there's no payoff.
They had that trap card that needed 7 cards in the graveyard, I remember.
That's true.
Like 7 Fire Formation cards, and then something big happens.
Yeah.
Forgot.
I also forgot, but maybe that is where it's going. I don't know.
It was just an N. Acts of Despair. Equip card that's an Archfiend, gives 1,000 attack. You contribute a monster, send it to the top of your deck, which is something you never want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, this card's bad.
Yeah. Maybe when we first started playing... When I first started playing, it's good.
Well, I mean, yeah, when we first started playing, it was a lot better because 1,000 attack boosts was really strong. But now it's just this.
That was also like 16 years ago. So.
Yeah, there's a lot has changed since we started playing. This card's not that good. 1,000 attack boost is not worth a card anymore. You get 2 for 1. The putting it back on top of your deck isn't even a good place to put it because then you lose a draw. Like, there's a lot of downside to this. Pretty much the only upside is that it counts as an Archfiend card, which is sometimes relevant, but you would rather just run the other Archfiend cards.
This card was good when we were literally children.
Yes.
16 years ago.
There you go.
UA Stadium. So I'm going to go to 2 UA cards now that support the archetype. It's a field spell. If a UA monster is normal summoned to your side of the field, you can add 1 UA from your deck to your hand. Once per turn, if a UA monster is special summoned to your side of the field, all monsters you control gain 500 attack. So just like the midfielder, this facilitates movement from the deck to your hand. This seems very core because they need cards in their hand that are UA monsters, and this lets you pick which one it is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think this might be one of the strongest, probably the strongest card in the archetype because... it gives you a boost, which is awesome. But
permanent,
permanent boost, and it gives you the tutor effect. Like just seems really strong. You play this, then you play your midfielder, and then you sub out the midfielder for whatever you tutored for with this, which is going to be whatever the best. I don't remember now, but whatever the best of the UAs is, and then it gets to be out there being the best plus 500 attack. Like this is the reason the deck works, I guess. This plus the midfielder is how it all kind of comes together.
Yep. Another very good card for the UA archetype is UA Penalty Box, Continuous Trap. At the start of the damage step, if your UA monster battles an opponent's monster, you can banish that opponent's monster until your opponent's second end phase. You can only use this effect once per turn. You can banish this card from your graveyard, add 1 UA spell from your deck to your hand. So what it first works like is a watered down Amazoness Onslaught. Still pretty good.
Yes, yeah. in our speed duel format, the end of the second end phase is often going to be never. So, like, it doesn't matter. You can only use it once. Like you said, that's very watered down. Onslaught, it doesn't have the Onslaught special summon, but it has that secondary effect in the graveyard where you can use it to get your stadium. So there's a lot of value here. I'm not exactly sure how you want to build this deck because it kind of any deck that requires you to play a field card is a little bit clunky in this game, but it seems like a really powerful tool. It seems very likely to be a good part of the reason why you play this archetype.
Okay, so now that we're done with the URs and SRs, we're going to talk about the notable archetypes in this deck. As mentioned, people were anticipating the Mermails a ton, and it's very possible that they're still super competitive in the upcoming meta, but a lot of the cards that people expected to come did not come, so that is Konami's way of balancing Duel Links, I guess, to make sure something's not OP.
Mm-hmm.
So, of these cards, Mermail Abyss Sturge is the R rarity. It's tough. It's tough seeing which is which. It's just, let's see. I can't tell from the pictures. Oh, here it is. It is a 4-star fish, and it's a budget version of the Abyss Spike. So you could just discard one water monster to the graveyard, target one level 3 or lower in your graveyard, and add it to your hand. 1700 attack.
Yeah. Here we go. It took me that whole time to find it.
Yeah.
So this one is any water monster. I have to check now because I got burned on that other card. So it does let you kind of get a whole, I don't know, chain of things going. You could do this, and then it can get back whatever you discarded to it, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
And then, or it can get back your frog that we just talked about, and then that can kind of get a chain going, so that you can then do get your fish board going, or discard your Citadel Whale. So there's lots of kind of combo potential here to do a bunch of things and get a turn one Citadel Whale. That's kind of where my mind is for a lot of these cards. Even if the Mermails don't work, it does seem like a lot of these cards allow you to more consistently get turn one whales, which is very good.
Yeah, I'm glad this card's just a rare. Like, this is a card you would want, like, a lot of. I think so.
Yeah, I think so. I also like it's a solid card. Once you have the Yumi out, 1900 attacker is not bad. Definitely good enough to help you kind of get in that last bit of damage. So, seems good.
The other two Mermail cards, the level 3s, there's Abyss Gundy and Abyss Hildy. Abyss Gundy, when she is discarded, you can target one Mermail in your graveyard except Abyss Gundy, special summon that target. So, I guess you would have a bigger one in the graveyard. You would discard this one and bring back the bigger one, which is one of the level 7s. And Abyss Hildy is, if this is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon one Mermail from your hand. So, that one, the level 7 would be in your hand, and you would just discard this one. So these are kind of the workers to get discarded and bring something big on the board.
Yep, and yet again, they both have a lot of Sea Stealth synergy because they let you get out those special, like those extra summons. So discarding it is very easy to one of your other Mermails, or any other reason why you might be discarding it. And then once you've done that, you've gotten your double. You could do it with the frog, right? So there's just so much potential to get things out quickly, and it seems really solid with the whale. I like it a lot.
Mermail Abyss Lead. I could find the card.
That's on the top row in the Duel Links meta one. If you have that open.
In the N? In the N's? Or the R?
R. It's the second,
there you
second
go.
Guy.
7-star, 2700, 1000. You could discard 3 water monsters to the graveyard, special summon this from the hand. If you do, you can target one of these Abyss spell traps and add it to your hand. Tribute one other face-up attack position mermail. Send one card from your opponent's hand to the graveyard. So this is one of the big monsters. If you don't have the UR, I guess that's what the point is. It does throw away 3 water monsters, which does have some of the other synergy you're talking about.
Yeah, but 3...
Mermails? Yeah.
3 is a lot. I don't like this one nearly as much. It's one of the few that I don't think is great in Sea Stealth attack. If you can get it out like some through the other cards though, instead of through its own effect, then sure. It's a beefy guy. It's one that you can use. So I guess even though it doesn't have as much Sea Stealth attack potential, if you do a mermail Sea Stealth attack, then yes, it does, because it's a activator for the Sea Stealth once it's already out. The disruption of their hand with like your extra waters is also interesting. I like that because sometimes you just have a board full of guys, and once you kind of get your big guys out, you don't want to play any more things, so this can let you use them to mess up their hand. So I take it back in my notes. I think this guy's actually decent, and I think there's too many ways to build Sea Stealth now, so there's a lot of things to try out. But one of them will be the Mermail Sea Stealth, and in that, this might be decent if you can consistently get it out with the Hildy or the other one, Gundy.
I just realized something. The Undy and Hildy are aquas. The Abyss Sturge is a fish, and this guy's a sea serpent. They're all different things.
That's weird.
I thought those would the girls would all be fishes. I thought, because they kind of look the same.
Yeah, the girls. It's weird that they're all different. This guy, he looks more fishy to me. I don't know. All of these water attribute things. It's kind of like they're all just water monsters to me. And then that's the problem, right? Because sometimes it matters what they are, and then you're just like, I don't know. What is it? If it's a fish, though, that's good, because we have the whatever it's called, the one that you can turn into any fish.
And now I'm lost.
The Butituna.
Oh yes, the tuna.
Yeah.
Princess, yeah.
Yes, yeah. There you go. So, the fish ones are especially good for that reason. What is the... Yeah, so that has to be a level 4 or lower, but like we were talking about, Golden Flying Fish gets a lot of extra tools in this set. There's just a lot of different ways you can take these water cards into existing water archetypes as well.
Mermail Abyss Baleen. This card's pretty bad. You have to discard 4 mermails, and then you destroy a bunch of things. I think like you could target their cards up to the number of mermails you have, and destroy them all. But you could destroy their whole board with this card, but you have to discard 4 mermails. That's going to be really hard to do.
Yeah, discarding 4 is really bad. I was thinking you might do something like, because it's target cards equal to the number of mermail monsters in your graveyard. So
it's the 4 you destroyed, I guess.
Yeah, the 4 you discarded and any others that were already out. But like you said, discarding 4 is a lot. If there were, I don't know, if it were like less powerful, I'm not sure. Never mind. I don't like this one because discarding 4 is too many, and that's the main reason why you would want to play this. It's a okay body if you want to just cheat something out. Since it's an N, you can get it more easily, but I think if you're going to cheat something out with your other cards, you might as well just use the Abyss Lead as the better one to do if you're not activating this thing's other effect.
I just thought of the card Salvage.
There you go.
Target 2 water monsters with 1500 attack or less in your graveyard and add them to your hand. Oh, that's one way to add cards.
Yeah.
Array of Greed is another one. You get a +1.
Yeah, I guess there's some ways to do it. I would rather just do my Sea Stealth things or the Flying Fish things instead, or whatever. But it's possible. And blowing up your opponent's whole board means you essentially win that turn. I mean, you're discarding...
Or last gamble mermail.
Yeah, there you go. Last gamble mermails. That's the new meta.
It's based on an N. This is the winner card right here. Oh my
You've
god.
heard it here first, folks.
Yeah. Hey, we didn't even write this down in the notes. It just came to me. Um, the equip spells, Abyss Scale of Cetus, and what's the other one called? It's a rare Abyss Scale of the Mizuchi. Those protect them against spells and traps respectively, but the problem is that their equip spells, they're kind of slow, so that's their problem.
Yeah, and the other problem is it protects it, but there's no protection before you equip it. So they can even wait until, for some of the spells and traps anyway, they can wait until you try to equip it and then hit you with like a floodgate trap hole or something at that point, or not, whatever. The one that I mean.
Paleozoic, that works.
Yeah, Paleozoic. I was thinking of treacherous, but the same idea. Like, or they can hit it with I don't know, an econ or some removal based on spells. So anyway, the whole point is that in addition to, so they get multiple opportunities to kill it before you get to do something. You play it, and they can trap hole it at that point with the floodgate. Or they wait until you play this card and even get you further into the 2-for-1 downside, because now you've wasted your equip as well. With certain spells and traps, they can even wait until that point. So, equip cards are just not good, and these don't seem like they're good enough to play either. To break the rule.
And finally, yeah, go ahead.
No, nothing.
Equip cards suck.
Yes. Yes.
Finally, Abyss Squall, a trap card that gets 3 mermails from your graveyard, and you can special summon them, and then they get destroyed. So it's basically just getting bodies to get tributed because they can't do anything else. Those mermails can't do anything else.
Yeah, but tributing is really strong. I've said it a million times already, but Sea Stealth gets a big buff from this. If you're doing the mermail version, you might want to run this so that you can just yet another way to get your Citadel Whale out really quickly. You can also use it just for doing normal big tribute summons. Some of these mermails are kind of clunky if you can't get them out already or with the special effects, but a level 7 is not so bad if you get 3 free things to use as tribute fodder. So I like that card.
All right, we're gonna go over the Koaki Meirus.
Yeah. Okay, so this was one that I covered. They all work similarly, like we said earlier, to the SRs that we saw at the beginning, where you kind of have this condition for them staying alive at the end of the turn. Usually the condition is to either discard the Iron Core or to reveal a card from your hand. The Iron Core itself is an N in the set, and it does nothing except for be kind of the centerpiece of the archetype. So let me pull it up. Here we go. It is a spell card. It reads, during your draw phase, if this card is in your graveyard, you can add this card to your hand instead of drawing, and or send one Koaki Miru monster from your hand to your graveyard to add this card to your hand. So you can, basically its entire effect is to put it into your hand, right? And so that makes sense because all of these all of these monsters want you to discard it. So anyway, the Koaki Miru Ice. I guess we can start there. I started by looking at these cards and doing each one, and then eventually I decided there were too many and not enough of them were relevant, so I stopped doing that. But at the beginning,
There's enough of them.
yeah. At the beginning, we started with that. So this one is a 4-star Aqua. 1900, 1200. During each of your end phases, destroy this card unless you reveal the core, unless you send the core to the graveyard, or you reveal one continuous spell card. And then the other effect is you can send one card from your hand to your graveyard to destroy one special summon monster on the field. So this one is good stats, pretty good secondary effect. There's a lot of special summon monsters, but usually if they're special summoning monsters, then dealing with them on a 1-for-1 basis is a little bit too slow. So it's like, it's not an amazing effect, but it's a good effect. The downside is that there's not very many continuous spell cards like in the game that are even worth playing. So this to me seems like an okay card, but you can't really splash it that well because there's not that many good things for you to reveal other than the core. And like I mentioned before, I don't love the archetype where you have to run the core because it's like the whole main deck version of the archetype. So I think that one's okay. You have any takes on it?
Nope. I agree that I can't even name a continuous spell.
It's Wonder Balloon's time.
Banner of Courage. Banner of Courage.
Ooh. Oh, actually, you know, Wonder Balloons is funny because you can you can use it for this guy, but also you can use it with the core, and you could do the whole deck out thing, where you never draw a card because the core prevents you from drawing. You just get the core back every turn, and you discard it every turn to Wonder Balloons. So
that's sweet.
I guess there's something there.
You heard it here first again.
There we go. That's the play, everyone. All right, Kawaki Miru. Now I really want to play that, actually. I'm going to try that out. It's going to be terrible, but I'm going to try it anyway. Kawaki Miru Crusader is the next one. Same effect, except the alternative is to reveal a Beast Warrior type monster. 1900 attack, 1300 defense. And his effect is, if it destroys an opponent's monster, you can add a Kawaki Miru card from your graveyard to your hand. So this is another one that I thought was pretty solid. It works with the SR because it is itself a Beast Warrior, and it has further Beast Warrior synergy. So you can do it with the Urnite, which is the 2000, and then you can special summon this guy, and now you've got a 1900 beater, and you're running Fields of Warriors, so they're 22 and 2100, and it actually seems like a semi-decent tempo deck if you don't worry about the core and instead just do it as a Beast Warrior type. So this one was one that I actually thought was kind of decent.
Yeah.
Cool. Next one is the Sea Panther. Alright, let's see. Sea Panther is... yeah, he's kind of in the middle of the R's. It is a 4-star water sea serpent, 1900, 1200. Same effect, and the alternative is to reveal a water monster. Once per turn, you can send one iron core from your hand to your graveyard to return one spell card from your graveyard to the top of your deck. So, decent body, really easy to meet the condition because there's lots of water monsters. But the upside, or the secondary effect, isn't really much of an upside because it requires you to run the iron core, and returning, we just talked about this with the axe, putting something on top of your deck isn't really that good. And there's not even a ton of magic cards that you would that I can think of that you would build your whole deck around that you specifically want to make sure you have and can put on top of your deck and stuff again. So I'm not that impressed with this one. The next one is the Prototype, and it is a 4-star rock, Earth Rock, 1800, with the effect, if a Kawaki Miru on the field would be destroyed during the end phase, which is when all of their effects trigger, you can destroy this card instead. When a face-up Kawaki Miru monster on the field is destroyed during the end phase, you can special summon one token, which is a 1800. So it kind of keeps your board full. It protects your other guys, or it replaces them. It seems okay, but I'm not sure where, like, it's kind of a mediocre body, mediocre effect. You're not, like, mad at it, but I'm also not sure where you would want to put this in a deck. It doesn't seem like something that compels me. Alright, the Power Hand. And like we said, there's a lot of these guys, so bear with me here. He is a Earth, level 4, 2100, 1600, so very solid. During the end phase, discard this guy, destroy this guy unless you discard the core, or you reveal a normal trap card in your hand. And then the effect is if it battles a light or dark monster, any of that monster's effects that apply are negated during the battle phase while this guy remains on the field. So this one, to me, is just a solid body. Not the worst downside because a lot of decks run normal traps. The downside's a little bit worse than you might think because you don't like to reveal your traps. The whole point is that they're surprises. And it makes you, like, you can't play the trap because you can't set it if it's in your hand at the end of the turn. So the upside of the light or dark isn't super relevant here. So this seems more like an Unga Bunga card. It doesn't seem as splashable as it initially appears. So I don't think this one will see a ton of play outside of kind of, I don't know, the gold to platinum range.
You can do mind games with a trap card. Just like have two and then just reveal one and then play the other one.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can make them, lull them into a false sense of security because they don't think you have it. And then you do. All right, let's see. The Maximus. That's this guy? Yeah. It's a level 8 wind dragon. Cannot be normal summoned or set. Can only be special summoned by removing from play one Iron Core of Kawaki Miru from your hand. During each of your end phases, destroy this card unless you send one Iron Core or one Kawaki Miru monster from your hand to the graveyard. Once per turn during your main phase, you can select and destroy one card your opponent controls. I don't know if I said it or not, 3,000 attack, 2,500 defense. So, to me, this is a very solid boss monster for if you want to run like the full version of this set, of this archetype. Because, of course, you have to run the core if you are running this guy to get him out. But if you do, that's a really cheap free summon if you're already building your deck in that way. And then discarding your whole rest of your deck kind of synergizes with his end of turn effect. But that's not even super relevant because this guy's setting you up to win very quickly afterwards. You have a 3,000 attacker on the field. You get to just once per turn for free destroy one card your opponent controls. It seems like I don't think this archetype is going to be a top tier archetype. I don't think it might just barely make tier 3, but I don't think it's going to be a huge meta contender. But this is the card that makes me think, maybe there's something to it. If you want to build the full Iron Core, this is the reason why.
Better than Blue Eyes.
Yeah, exactly. It's like much better than Blue Eyes, at least on its own. I mean, Blue Eyes obviously has a lot of kind of support cards and stuff. All right, there's a lot left of these. So the Iron Core Luster and the Negaton Core Panel are counter traps, but they have anti-synergy with each other and annoying conditions. One of them requires here. Let me pull it up. Negaton, you can only activate if you have one of the Kawaki Miru monsters. And if you have Iron Core in your graveyard, and it negates the activation of effect monster and destroys it. Whereas the Shield, you can only activate if your opponent declares an attack and you have 2 Iron Cores in your graveyard, destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls. The Luster, you have to reveal, that's the one I meant, reveal 1 Iron Core from your hand, negate the activation of your opponent's spell trap, and destroy it. So the Luster and the Negaton Core Panel are strong counter traps, but the conditions make them like a lot worse in my opinion, and especially since the conditions go counter each other. So one of them you need to hold the Iron Core in your hand, and the other one you need it in your graveyard. And so they feel like the Naturia counter traps to me, where they saw some play, but they ended up getting cut from the decks because they weren't good enough, and it wasn't worth the hassle of setting them all up. The Miru Shield is kind of in the same boat, where it's a big setup, obviously very powerful if you can get it to work, but it seems to me like we would rather just run this Drowned Mirror Force or Drowning Mirror Force or a Wall of D or a Widespread Ruin. One of the core, normal, regular, non-obtrusive trap cards that we already run or are getting. They all seem like better options to me. I have a lot left, and I don't feel like we want to go through all of them. So,
Skip around, yeah.
Yeah. We have the Ghoul Lungate is a zombie one, and Ghoul Undulate, I guess. Anyway, zombies are doing well right now, but this doesn't synergize with like any of the other zombie archetypes, and so the whole so it requires you to have zombie synergy, or it wants you to have zombie synergy, and I don't think you'll find a place where you want to play it.
Not gonna fit in with the other zombies.
Yeah, exactly. A couple of these other ones are kind of too clunky. Let's see. I like the boulder in my notes. Let's see if we can find the boulder. Do you see him anywhere?
He's the second to last on the first row.
Yeah, here we go. Okay. So, Earth, level 4, Rock, 1200, 1000, so obviously very low stats. Rock is kind of becoming more relevant these days. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 Iron Core of Kawakumiru or 1 level 4 or lower Kawakumiru monster from your deck to your hand. So obviously a really great way to get all of the whatever pieces you want from the deck. The core is very much the core of the deck if you're going full in, and then the level 4 or lower are a lot of those powerful ones that we talked about before are within that category. So I like that he's a searcher. Might be worth playing if you are playing this deck, the full version. Iron Core Immediate Disposal is a magic card. It's also an N, just like that last guy was. And I had it here a second ago, and now I've lost it.
Second to last on the third row.
Thank you. Oh no, our rows are different.
Well, it's the Iron Core that's like flying. If you could tell from the artwork, it's like lightning.
Maybe we want to cut this as well. Here we go. Jeez. Alright. Normal spell. Select and send 1 Iron Core from your deck to your graveyard. So, similarly, it's just a tutor effect, essentially. Because the Iron Core can come back from your graveyard, it essentially lets you run 6 Iron Cores. But the downside, of course, is that you're down a lot of cards. If you're playing this, you're down 1 card in your hand, and then if you're using it to get the Iron Core back, then you're down the card that you would have drawn from the Iron Core. Or essentially the Iron Core becomes the card that you would have drawn. So you're minus 1 card just to get the Iron Core, so that's another reason why I don't love the full version of the archetype. But it, that's something that you might want to consider if you're considering going into the whole archetype. Let's see, is there any others? There's a couple equipment cards. Don't play them because, they're equipment cards and those are bad. And Core Compression. It helps you set up your, Jesus, can't find anything here.
Red one?
Thank you. Alright. Reveal 1 Iron Core from your hand, discard 1 Kawakumiru monster, and activate this card, draw 2 cards. So, obviously it helps you get through your deck, and you've got, Urgent Synthesis, which allows you to return 1 Iron Core from your graveyard to your deck, and special summon a level 4 or lower Kawakumiru monster from your hand or your graveyard. So, these are kind of letting you get some tempo and synergy plays between the archetype, but long story short, because there's even more of these and don't feel like we should go through every single one of them, the archetype has a lot of internal synergy, and there's a lot of things you can do to build it. I think a lot of ways you can kind of make it work, but it seems like the payoff isn't big enough. So you're building your whole deck around this archetype, but then it's like, okay, what's the point? You've made yourself into a very solid tier 4 deck, a very consistent tier 4 deck. And so I think the more likely way that this will see more play is we were talking about with the Crusader and with the Earn Knight, where you can maybe just play it as a decent tempo Beast Warrior thing. And maybe that's where there's some potential for this archetype. I don't think the full version of the archetype has very much potential, but has a slight possibility of potential with the Maximus kind of going for just a huge, beefy guy with a lot of value. So that's the long and short of it.
You know why I passed it down to you?
Yes, yeah, I can see. It was
painful.
It was one painful. One archetype that took up like half of the review.
All right, UAs luckily only have a few more cards in their archetype. UA Dreadnought Dunker. If you're playing in the dice game, you get the UA deck in the early 30s, and you notice that Dunker's doing all the work. Like, he's destroying everything. He's 7-star, 2500, 1800. Special summon this by returning 1 UA from the field to the hand. Except Dunker, you can special summon Dunker once per turn. It has piercing. When it inflicts damage, just target one card on the field and destroy it. This is the strongest monster they have, and obviously it does damage, and it controls the board. There's a lot to like about this card.
Yep. Yeah, it makes sense. It's kind of the reason why you play it.
Rival Rebounder, 6-star, 2200, 2300. Same abilities, where you can get it from the hand, and if you special summon 1 UA monster from the hand, except Rival Rebounder, you can add another special summon, basically. So this lets you get 2 guys on the board. UA Mighty Slugger, 23,700. If it attacks, your opponent can't activate cards and effects until the end of the damage step. So it's like an Ancient Gear card. You attack it, and then you could swap him out for another UA card, which is decent. And Playmaker, 8-star, 2600, 2000. When another UA monster you control declares an attack, you can have this card lose 800 attack. And if it does, your attacking monster gains 800. So the problem is you'll need another UA on the board, so you need to kind of have like a full board to have this ability work at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that one's that great. To wrap it up real quick, there are a couple other archetypes that got like a smattering of cards. We've got the Aquatrice, we've got the Cloudions, we've got Ice Barriers, and Elemental Heroes, especially Bubble Man. None of those seem very good at all, except for maybe the Ice Barriers. Their tools seem decent, but it seems like there's a lot necessary to have them make a comeback. So I don't think that these decent cards are good enough to do that. They are the best out of these 4 that got like a smattering of support, but I just don't think it's enough to bring them back to relevancy.
Yeah, the problem is dual standby is not the same anymore.
Yeah.
I'll play.
Right.
All right. We're going to talk about the tabletop RPG. I guess in general, before we talk about the cards, what do you think about it? I guess we both mentioned how grindy it is. It feels like we can't finish it. I mean, we'll finish it, but it just takes some time. I personally think the on-screen transitions aren't good for during the dice games. They're really slow, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. It didn't bother me too much, but I do notice that sometimes, like, I'll do my dice because I like to grind stuff at work while I can. So I'm like, I click it, and then I'm like working on something, and I'm like, oh, why didn't it like do it? Like I thought I clicked it, but it didn't actually start the dice battle or something like that. So you're right. The transitions are a little clunky. It does feel a little grindy. I don't like so actually, before I get too negative, I want to say that I do think the idea is kind of fun, and
yes,
a lot of people online weren't feeling it, but I was. I kind of like the idea. I just wish it were slightly better implemented. And so the ways that I don't think that it was well done is it seems like none of the encounters are like really meaningful. all the dice battles are very rigged in your favor, where you get to go first every turn, so you get at least one free attack on your opponent every turn. Sometimes you get double attacks, and all of your dice rolls are almost always higher than your opponent's, so it's like pretty tough to lose a dice battle. Every once in a while, I've had to use like one of my items to help out, but they're pretty much rigged in our favor. And then the actual duels are even more so rigged in our favor because all your opponents, at least where I am, I'm what did I tell you, 28 or something like that, level 28, I think. Those or stage 28 or whatever. Those are all incredibly easy so far. I don't know if they're going to get harder later on, but I'm just like letting the computer auto duel them. So I would have liked it better if those were more meaningful. And I am really feeling they're calling it like the nerf to rewards. The coins are pretty hard and slow to come by, and then when you do the polls, you're not super likely to get one of the things you want. I still don't have any of the Zorks.
Yes.
And they cost 300 at the trader, and I don't have 300 EX gems yet either. And so it's kind of like, I feel like I'm likely to end this event. We're probably going to get one at the very end, right, for free. And then I might pull another one. So it seems fairly likely that I am not going to end up with at least one of the things, the kind of the chase cards. That guy, and then the other new UR, I don't have any of that either. So I'm assuming I'll get
really?
one of those for free as well. I'll probably pull one of them, or maybe both of them, and then I'll have to buy one from the EX trader, and I'm anticipating that I'm likely going to end up this event missing one of them, because I'm not going to have 600 EX gems.
I actually got everything except for the Zorks. Like, well, the Earthbound Spirit I only have 2, but I don't care. The Sage and the Magician, I have all of those. The Zorks I had 0, and I had to buy one with the EX trader.
You're already buying? Like I wasn't.
I had over 300.
Okay.
So I just bought one this morning, I think.
Yeah. Okay. I'm waiting until the end just to see, but I definitely expect that I'm going to have to buy. I mean, the Zork is more relevant than the other UR anyway, as far as I can tell. So I might just end up punting and not getting the last one of the other UR. But all of that's, we still have a little bit of time left with the event. The polls might get better. They might up the coin rate because they've seen people are complaining about it, or they aren't keeping up with the rewards as quickly as they thought people would, or something. I don't know. It's their first time doing it. I hope they do another one and that they do it a little bit better.
And remember to do 3 ranked duels a day. You could suicide deck if you don't like playing ranked, just to get the coins.
Oh, yes. Very important. Because, like we said, the coins are coming so slowly. 300 coins a day is like, it's a lot compared to the other ways of playing the game. So it's a good call to get that.
Let's go over the cards. Zork, 8-star, 2700, 1500 ritual. You can ritual summon this card by contract with the Dark Master, roll a 6-sided die, then destroy all monsters your opponent controls if you roll a 1 or a 2. Destroy 1 monster your opponent controls if you roll a 3 or 4 or 5. And destroy all monsters you control if you roll a 6. The RNG isn't too bad because it's just the 1 out of 6 that you fail. But you fail pretty bad if it does happen. And I feel like you could use kind of like dice manipulation card to help yourself if you're playing this card.
Maybe. It does seem like a card that's a little bit unsure of what role it wants to play. I listen a lot to like game design podcasts and stuff, and one of them is by Mark Rosewater, who has worked with Magic the Gathering forever, and so he has a lot of experience designing card games. Obviously, it's kind of like the granddaddy of them all, and he's been there for like 20-something years or whatever. And he points out that there's entirely different groups of people who like powerful competitive effects and the people who like big splashy effects with dice cards. And so if you are running like you can make a big, powerful, splashy effect reliant on dice, but if you do that, you don't want the card to be good, like competitive viable, because if it's competitive viable, then you're going to have competitive matches that come down to a dice roll. And that feels bad for competitive players because they don't like feeling like they just lost to RNG. And so Zork seems like it's a pretty solid card, but then this RNG doesn't match that, because if it is competitively viable, then 1 out of every 6 games you're just going to lose because you've killed yourself. So I hope that it's not good, because if it's good, then the game's going to feel bad for the people who care about the card being good. If it's just a splashy card that kind of more casual players are like, oh, this huge effect's going to happen, he's got a big body, so that's fun, he's the master of this realm, and every once in a while I destroy my opponent's board, every once in a while I destroy my board, haha, Zorg, he's so crazy. Then that's cool. That works for that group of players who's probably not a big part of our audience, but could be a little bit of it, and I hope that it's great for them. But I hope that it's not one of the more competitive cards, because if so, then it's going to make for a lot of feel-bad moments. Kind of like, there's going to be a day when I stop talking about Hearthstone, but it's not going to be today. It's kind of like when Yogg was big in Hearthstone, right? You would have these tournament matches where thousands of dollars are on the line or whatever, and then the end of the game just comes down to, well, I hope that Yogg plays the cards I want it to, so just going to, here goes nothing. Hopefully that's not what happens here with Zork.
Would you say the Pavel Amnesiac thing was similar in like a smaller scale, or was that more? There was more to it than that.
Well, I read something about how Pavel wasn't as lucky as it looked, because
right, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so like Amnesiac had so few outs because Pavel had played it so well and whatever, and Pavel had many outs because of how well he had set it up. So not to get too deep into off-topic history, I think that one had a slightly different problem, where the problem wasn't that the RNG was hurting the competitive players so much as that the appearance was worse than the reality, which is kind of a perception problem, more than like a type of card design problem.
Right. We could talk about stuff like this all day, but
but we're already going long though, so let's not.
This is just one dice roll. So.
Yeah.
Winged Sage Falcos, 4-star Winged Beast, 1700, 1200. When this card destroys an opponent's face-up attack position monster by battle and sends it to their graveyard, you can place that monster on top of their deck. So, if this guy gets strong, if it attacks a face-up attack position monster, you win the game. But there's a lot of conditions, and there's a lot to make this guy strong and make him blow by their back row.
Right, yeah. And then it doesn't let you... So it looks like it does a lockdown thing, but not really, because they would have to keep putting things into face-up attack position, right?
Yeah, they could just stop it.
Right, yeah, they could just set things instead. So it's not so much a lockdown, so much as just like one-turn disruption, which sometimes is enough to win you the game, but sometimes it's not. And this kind of requires setup to get there. So... I'm not super excited about this. I don't think it's the most powerful card of the bunch. I think Zork is, but I'm hoping I'm wrong, like we just talked about.
Skilled White Magician, 4-star Spellcaster, or 1700, 1900. Each time a spell card is activated, place 1 spell counter on this card. When that spell resolves, you could maximum 3 counters. You can tribute this card with 3 counters on it, special summon Buster Blader from anywhere. So... no one really plays the skilled Dark Magician, and there sure is not going to play... Well, there's the Blue Magician, but then I think there's a Black Magician, too. That's for the Dark Magician. And then this one's for Buster Blader, and Buster Blader is really only in Dark Paladin farm decks. You never really see the card anywhere.
Yeah. Did we already have this as a reward in something else? Because I already have like 6
This one's a new one. The white one's a new one, the blue one's old, and then there's a black one, I think, for Arcana.
Okay, so I don't know why I have
you
so
got
many
a lot
of these
them.
already. But...
you just kept getting it.
Yeah.
Instead of Zork, you got a lot of these guys.
I guess so.
Earthbound Spirit is a card I used to play. It's a 500, 2000 Fiend. That's all it is. And then the other card. Fusionist and Rare Fish are those cards that, you fuse for no reason. Yeah, there's not much to say. They're weaker than other cards.
Yeah, no point in playing these except, I don't know, for memes or something weird.
Fusionist the Rare Fish is actually a fusion of the Fusionist, so it's like a 2-step fusion.
Huh.
2-step fusion for a card that can't hit through a Beaver Warrior. Defense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can't hit that beaver.
Alright, we're done with all our cards. Just to blow through some of the upcoming news. Casey Cup's happening soon, and the 29th. Tristan's here. Decklist features. Duelathon is back with no characters. Cyrus is going to the gate. New Bell is coming mid-September. 5Ds coming late September, about a month from now, so we're really excited about that. Hopefully we'll know more. We kind of know what characters are coming and what skills, but we'll wait for it to be official. And then a new team event with Esperova, which I felt like we did before, but this could be a different event.
Yeah, we did do an Esperova thing with, yeah, I don't know. Sounds familiar. Maybe they're doing it a little differently.
Yeah. Oh well, so that's it. So, thanks for listening, everyone. Any comments and suggestions, please let us know. Listen and subscribe to our podcast at any searcher. Search the Duel Assessment Podcast and subscribe and download. Check out the podcast more at our website, theduelassessment.wordpress.com. We have Facebook, facebook.com/theduelassessment. If you want to help our work, patreon.com/duel_assessment. Email us at theduelassessment@gmail.com. And send us any comments at Twitter, duel_assessment, me, Green Ranger, CCG, Deck Tech at HS Deck Tech.
Yep. See you guys next week.
See ya.